What is self-doubt? A lack of confidence in oneself and one's abilities. Thanks, Google. I would say self-doubt is like the 10th circle of hell. A small failure will make you question your abilities, and the next thing you know, you aren't good enough or smart enough to do anything. And that's when you stop trying. I want to tell you a story about a young genius who, despite having every reason to be crippled by self-doubt, he still learned to share his talents with the world. So a 4-year-old boy, he's sitting at home, he's playing with his toys. He's hungry, but he doesn't tell anyone. He's tired, but only his posture reveals it. 4 years old and he can't or won't speak. In school, his teachers and classmates think him a fool. They try to teach him art and languages, but he doesn't pick them up like the other kids. He's only learned enough to get by. In high school, he's repeating his words to himself. He tries to apply for college, but fails the entrance exams. Eventually, he gets his degree, but doesn't get the job he wants, so he just spends his days working in a boring patent office. But through all of those years, thought of as a nobody capable of nothing, this young man told himself a different story. You see, this young man knew he was good at one thing, and that one thing was science. And as you might have guessed it by now, that young man was me. Okay, it wasn't me, it was actually a dude called Albert Einstein. And Albert, in 1905, would share 4 ideas with the world that would shape the foundation of modern physics. Now, Albert was a genius, and we all know that today, but it was far from obvious in his early days. Did he make the impact on the world just because he was smart? Does intelligence shine through despite all the odds? Probably not. There are a lot of brilliant people that never overcome the feeling that they don't belong. Today there's convincing evidence that shows how well you can perform in life depends heavily on how you think you can improve when you feel like you're not achieving anything at all. Personally, I've struggled with self-doubt for around 42,069 days. Okay, maybe not that long, because if you did the math, which most of you probably won't, that sums up roughly to around 115 years. And believe it or not, I am not that old. I'm just a 17-year-old kid whose most serious and longest relationship has been with his self-doubt. Very romantic, I know. I doubted how I look, how I act, everything. I was never enough, and my choices reflected that. I also let it hold me back from pursuing some things that I wanted. It held me back from who I was and from who I wanted to be. This negative self-talk and self-doubt I had, in a way, became such a habit that I was comfortable with it. And the next thing I knew, I was stuck in an endless loop of negativity and self-loathing, and eventually this started to make me hate myself. Also, this self-doubt I had led to fear, and I'm not talking about the sudden fear you experience in a horror movie when a sudden jump scare pops off. I'm talking about the fear that we become afraid of trying new things because of self-doubt. Humans are creatures of habit, good and bad, and we're afraid that if we try something new and it might not work out, it might be worse than what we have right now. We focus on what could go wrong instead of what can go right. Think of doubt like strings pulling and bending your will to some unknown force. You feel like your own body is not yours anymore, and it's just your consciousness left. Your mind may be telling you that you are able, and your body may be able as well, but still, something lacks the conviction to do a certain thing. Doubt is not always, but still highly influenced by one's past. And even if it wasn't negative or hard, even if one's past was good and happy, unnoticeable details and at the time small experiences may have caused one's rise in doubt, specifically self-doubt. So you might be thinking by now, this sounds bad and self-destructing. Well, it gets worse, because most of the time Mr. Self-Doubt, and yes, I did assume the gender of a mental state, tags along his friends anxiety, depression, and the biggest one of them all, in my experience, overthinking. But let's not give those guys the attention for now. So how can we stop this? There are multiple ways that we can stop this. By connecting with others, we should learn that it's okay to talk about how we feel to close friends and family, grounding ourselves, not being as harsh on ourselves. Even a 10-minute daily pep talk in the mirror could help, which could be very awkward at first, I admit, but eventually you get used to it. And of course, all of these things are easier said than done. But the only way of defeating doubt is having what's opposite of it, and that is hope. Hope can come in different shapes and sizes. Some find it through religion, some find it through meditation. through a person, through a sport they like to play, through a song they love to hear. And I'm not saying that we should just ignore doubt altogether, because if we did, we would go out there and accept the first thing that we hear as the truth, which will make us very gullible. What I'm saying is that we should fight that part in us that says, hey, you're not good enough for this or that. There's a quote that I heard that I quite like. Everybody dies, but not everybody lives. We should not have regrets later in life just because we're too scared to try something new that might have changed our lives for the better. And even if it didn't, even if doubt was right all along, we would still learn from it, and we would not think about the what ifs later on. Because as Susie Chasm said, doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. So choose hope, and choose how you see yourself, because how you view yourself is much more important than how someone else sees you. For example, if you see yourself as someone who always procrastinates, like me, then what do you do all the time? You procrastinate. If you see yourself as a writer, you write. If you see yourself as a runner, you run. As for me, I can proudly say, although it's still there, self-doubt these past few months hasn't been as present in my life as it was before. So just don't give in. You're not as bad as you think you are, and you're not the mess up. You can succeed in anything you want, if you're willing to believe in it, and most importantly, believe in yourself. And for the end, I will leave you with the words of Honoré de Balzac: don't doubt your power, because if you doubt your power, you give power to your doubt. Thank you.